Right out of the gate, I want to remind you that this program is recorded on Friday morning. We are only hours removed from the coordinated and deadly attack on law enforcement officers in Texas. What we do know is this occurred during a protest walk through the city of Dallas after 2 black men were shot and killed by police in separate incidents in other parts of the country, one in Minnesota and another in Louisiana. Details about this attack will come out, but it's answers that people are looking for, no doubt. If only it was that simple. Senator, good to see you.
Josh, very good to see you.
So just initial thoughts. Seems like we're talking about this way too often.
My initial thoughts, of course, my prayers are with the families of the 5 police officers that were killed in the line of duty, and obviously the officers who are injured. We pray for their safe recovery. And this is just horrific. It demonstrates, though, the incredibly difficult work that our police officers do every single day, and that we need to stand with our law enforcement community. Josh, it reminds me too much of some of the cases I handled as Attorney General. Yeah. And one thing I learned is how difficult a job that our first responders have, and how important it is, but what a brotherhood and sisterhood they have together. So I know the law enforcement community will certainly be coming together to stand with those in Dallas and to stand with the police officers' families.
Yeah, and given your resume, this must be a little more personal than...
It's very personal for me. And, you know, I just think about, obviously, you know, the case I prosecuted with the murder of Officer Michael Briggs, a decorated Manchester police officer. And so this is what our law enforcement unfortunately face, and it's really important when we see these situations that happen around the country that we don't generalize about our police, and that we understand how important what our police does. And this was a peaceful, as I understand it, a peaceful gathering of people in terms of protest, and yet the police that were there were actually, you know, talking with the protesters, and it was a situation where they were targeted, which is what's so troubling about this, to target law enforcement officers while they're doing their jobs. And they're doing their jobs in a way, as far as I can see, where they're actually trying to allow the community to peacefully demonstrate.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a lot about this we don't know, but initially it seems that this race is involved. And
very troubling.
So where does the discussion start? Is it about law enforcement? Is it about examining the individual cases of what happened in Louisiana and Minnesota and really going out of the way to inform?
I think we need to understand that, first of all, as we look at this situation, the cases that occurred, I mean, you have to, with the case in Louisiana, you have to let the process work out. Let a case be investigated and not have people be vigilantes. And obviously, what they've done in this situation to target police officers. And then I also think that we need to understand that we can't cast aspersions on the law enforcement community, that you have to look at each case individually, and you have to know that 99.9% of what the police do every day, they're phenomenal. Yeah. They're heroic. And these officers that were killed in the line of duty were heroic. And I just think this is an important moment where I hope our leaders will bring us together, and really bring us together on, obviously, the race issue, but also bring us together on the need to support our law enforcement community, and that we're all in this together.
Let me ask you, not long after this happened, President Obama, who's in Poland, gave some comments, and it didn't take long before he got to the issue of guns and gun control, pointing to the fact that, you know, this was a deadly attack, his words, that it wouldn't have been as deadly if not for the high-powered weapons. Where can we strike a balance to where people can start to agree on something when it comes to guns?
Well, I mean, I offered that recently when it came to the issue of what happened in Orlando. I offered a compromise, bipartisan bill that ensured that terrorists can't have guns, and also protected the constitutional rights of law-abiding citizens. I think there are opportunities. But let's step back for this moment. The President of the United States, we've already talked about some of the information we know about what has happened, that there are racial overtones here. And he has an opportunity to bring us together around these issues, and make sure that he brings us together around in the nation to rally behind the law enforcement community in Dallas and around this country, and to rally to say that racism is completely unacceptable as well. And I think that this is his opportunity, and really he should be focusing on that in this moment.
Yeah, we got to talk about some other news of the week. Before this attack, President Obama was campaigning with Hillary Clinton on the same day that the FBI director released information related to their investigation into her emails. I was very curious to find out what you thought, given your background as Attorney General, when he laid out what they found and then the decision to not recommend prosecution.
Well, I have to tell you, Josh, this is so unusual. I'm a former prosecutor, and to have the head investigator, the head of the FBI, come out and make the conclusion that no reasonable prosecutor would bring this case, when does this happen? That's not what the FBI director does. Usually they investigate the case, they refer to the Department of Justice. So right offhand, this case is being handled differently than other cases. That's not how I would handle a case, a major case. The police would investigate it, and then I would look whether the elements of the crime are there and decide whether to charge. So that in and of itself surprised me. This process is totally different, and I think that it reeks of the fact that different set of rules, unfortunately. The other thing that troubled me about this is to say that she was, extremely careless and negligent, but not to say that there's gross negligence in light of the fact that she actually set up this server. If you look at what she said previously about it, so many inconsistencies from what she said when this issue was revealed versus what they found in the investigation, including she said she never sent or received classified emails. That wasn't true, including the fact she said she used one device. She used multiple devices, including the fact that she actually, in one instance at least, if not more, she actually asked them to take off the header of a classified piece of information so it could be faxed. So knowing it was classified, she was told by the State Department, in fact, that, that she was jeopardizing classified information by the way she was holding it, and yet continued to hold it that way. So this is one of those ones, what worries me is equal treatment under the law. And so what does your average person take away from this? When you have the FBI director coming out, normally this would be referred to the Department of Justice, handling this differently, and also to lay out all of these facts, and you have to put yourself in the shoes of an average person. Would an average person be treated in this way? I think there's real questions about it.
And a lot of people saying the fix was in long before this week. But when you talk about Hillary Clinton, in any other cycle, something like this would be the end of a presidential campaign. Trustworthy issues that she's been dealing with for a long time. Huge issues.
Imagine being president of the United States and you've been, found to be extremely careless in handling classified information as the Secretary of State, and now you're asking to be the Commander-in-Chief. There are huge questions around this.
But she's running against Donald Trump, which gives her campaign more life, you could say, because of Donald Trump's problems that he's had in the past, very divisive comments. And everybody tries to tie you and other Republicans on the ticket to Donald Trump. You said you will support the Republican nominee, but you're not going to endorse him.
Right.
And people say, well, that doesn't make any sense.
Well, it does, Josh. I plan to vote for him, but I obviously am running for re-election in the fall. I've had my disagreements with him, but I just want to be clear. It doesn't matter who's in the White House. I will be standing up for the people of New Hampshire. When I agree with them and we can get good things done for New Hampshire and the country, we'll work together. When I disagree, no matter who is in the White House, I will be very clear on that behalf if I don't think it's right for New Hampshire and the country.
Does he call you and say,
I haven't. And let me just say, I think I'm the only candidate in the Senate race that can say that I will disagree if it's not right for New Hampshire, no matter who's in the White House. And I have not spoken to him since before he got in this race. So
do you want to? Do sometimes you want to pick up the phone and call him up and say, What are you doing?
Well, he certainly doesn't turn to me for advice.
Sure.
But that said, this is really about who's going to represent New Hampshire and who's going to make sure that New Hampshire has an independent, strong voice, that no matter who's in that White House, it's going to be about what's right for New Hampshire.
And heading into the Republican National Convention, how important do you think his choice of a running mate will be? Is there anybody you'd like to see, or do you hope he's considering?
I think it's a very important choice for either nominee, of course. It's the Vice President of the United States. So, I
Would
think...
you do it? I have to ask.
Yeah, no.
Okay, I'm just asking.
No, because, Josh, I want to continue to serve the people of New Hampshire. There's so much more work that needs to be done, and that is what my greatest desire is to do, and it's a privilege to serve.
In order to do that, presumably, theoretically, Donald Trump has to do well on the ticket too. Who do you think would be a good pairing for him that would kind of put some of those Republicans on the fence and say, okay, let's...
Listen, I think there are many qualified people out there. He's got to decide that. The most important criteria is, are you qualified to serve as the president if something happens to the president, and also to make sure that you have the kind of depth of knowledge and understanding. So people come at this with different backgrounds, and there are a number of people out there that he could choose that would be quite qualified, and I hope he chooses one of them.
Okay, we're just about out of time, and the attack in Dallas took up more time than I had anticipated, but quickly, I just want to get an update on the CARA bill. Obviously, it's still a big problem here. Where does that stand?
So important. So there's
the opioid crisis.
Yeah, so in March we passed the Comprehensive Addiction Recovery Act 94-1. The House passed several, 18 different bills, and now we've conferenced them. There's been a committee of conference. It's a very strong bill focusing on prevention, treatment, recovery, support for our first responders. And this is a bill that has the support not only of our police chiefs in New Hampshire, but the Fraternal Order of Police, those that are involved in prevention, treatment, and recovery. And next week, we are going to be voting on it on the Senate floor.
Are you confident you get the Democrats over?
I hope so. I mean, I don't think we should play politics with this, Josh, and this is too important. This has been a very bipartisan bill. We introduced it with myself and other Republican, 2 Democrats, and we got overwhelming support on the Senate floor. I think this is one where Republicans, Democrats, it doesn't matter. Unfortunately, with heroin, this is about saving lives, and that's what we want to do, and that's why this bill is so important.
No easy answers to that problem either. All right, good to see you, Senator. Thanks very much for joining us this morning.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
You got it.